With me and a bit of a tip of the cap to the folks here this morning from Lavender Blue Gators. Ashley, Danielle, and Tracy. Thanks very much, ladies. And again, welcome to our annual Economic Development Committee breakfast. My name is Mike Zackerley. I'm a former past chair of the EDC. You cutting it out? Still there? Nothing? Nothing? Oh, there we go. Yeah, past chair of EDC. And let me tell you, if ever there was a great time, to volunteer for a committee around town with the title Economic Development, there's no better time to do that than when your town is making headline news for the fastest growing town in Ontario and second fastest growing town in Canada. And just, just as a quick survey this morning, how many business owners here this morning, or people that are involved in the service industry, local banks, real estate, etc., just a show of hands if I can get you to do that. How many of you have benefited from the recent, I'm going to say, population explosion of new wallets, new buildings, etc.? Hands up again. Like I said, I really couldn't go wrong being part of the Economic Development Committee. Trust me. I realize that everybody has some breakfast in front of them this morning, but I'm going to ask if you would kindly just rise and stand and join me in singing our national anthem this morning. I believe we have a flag on the wall over here. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true, the strong and free, from far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you. Next time we'll make sure there's some musical accompaniment with that. I want to, a couple of things this morning. One, it really does give me a lot of pleasure to be here this morning. I'm going to act as your MC and later moderator for today's panel because it provides two opportunities for me. One, that I get the opportunity to thank you again for taking time out of your day this morning. I know it's bright and early. It is a great turnout. This is an annual event. I can't thank you enough for participating and showing up. On behalf of the EDC Committee, Town of Shelburne, again, thank you. The other thing that it does is it gives me the opportunity to thank some of my former EDC committee members and introduce you to some of our new Economic Development Council members. So, if I may, Steve Bowles is our current EDC chair. Steve, you're in the room. I just get you to put your hand up. Steve is actually the current EDC for how long now, Steve?
10 years.
10 years? So, and Steve recently, you drew the short end of the stick as new chair. Steve, is that what happened? So, Steve,
chair left us.
Steve is also former operator auto center at the Napa Auto Pro here in town. Vice chair EDC is Andrew Lewis. Andrew, you're here this morning. Andrew in the back of the room. Andrew, for those of you who don't know, Andrew owns the local giant tiger in town. We have a couple of appointed council members that sit as part of the EDC committee. Shane Hall, I know Shane is here with us this morning. Shane, council member Shane. Little Bob is the other council appointee. I don't think he was with us this morning, though, is she? No. We also have a returning member, Economic Development Committee member, Bill Gillum. Bill? Bill We have 3 new committee members. Isabel Lusty. Isabel, are you here? Hey, Isabel. Althea Casamento. Althea. Very good. And Mikhail Archer. Now, Mikhail, I saw you here this morning. You know, almost everybody that volunteers for EDC, surprisingly, I think most of them are business owners around town. And I know that in addition to the volunteering that everybody does, everybody's fairly active in charity and sponsorship events around town, with soccer, hockey, those sorts of things. And Bill, I just want to say great job with the Breakfast Club in particular. Former non-returning members, I know Sharon Grant. I saw Sharon, I saw you this morning somewhere. Here you are. Brian Besley. Brian, I saw you this morning. And Linda Ward Grant. I think I got the And earlier, our council appointee was both Mayor Mills, who's with us this morning, and Councilor Walter Milano, who's not with us this morning. Sharon, Brian, and Linda, I know this should kind of squeezed in there, but can I ask you to just pop up here on stage really fast? Okay. Is that okay? Linda, Sharon, Brian, can you guys get up here? And Chair Steve, maybe Vice Chair Mr. Lewis. Sorry if I share Linda, Brian. We just wanted to take a quick moment and say thanks very much for your participation, for your commitment towards the EDC committee and everything that you do around town. And as a token of our appreciation and a reminder of your time on EDC, just a couple of quick presentations that we made.
Sharon, thank you.
And I just want you to know that if there's any applause or anything that the EDC may have done, I'm going to pass credit on down to you 3. Just
good.
So again, thank you very much, everybody. And let me take a brief vote this morning, if I may as well, and introduce you to some of our council and town members here this morning. Oh, Brian. Brian, I've got the program. You don't follow the program, right?
I'm sure. I know we're slow, but they're long enough.
Joining us this morning, we have Worship Mayor Wade Mills with us. Council members this morning, Mr. Bonato is not here, Lynn Buffett is not here, Kyle Fegan, I don't think I saw Kyle this morning either. But certainly Shane Hall, as I mentioned, Shane is with us. And we have Lindsay Wagner here with us this morning, Councilor Wagner. Good morning. And importantly, we have Shelburne's Chief Administrative Officer, Denise Morrissey. And just so you know, both Denise and Wade will be joining us on our panel later on this morning. And last but not least,
Last but not least, we'd like to show some recognition to our past chair and former president. So I just had the opportunity of sitting with Mike as vice chair, and I miss him. So come on back at the time.
I can tell you, that's not in the program. It's not in the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Great.
That's right.
And last but not least, a young lady that coordinated most of today's events, Carol Maitland. I know Carol. Come on over here, marketing coordinator. And Carol's actually going to provide us an update on our EDC activities over the last year, so she'll be joining us shortly. Before I move on, I also noticed that we have folks here from our Shelburne Police Services this morning, Chief Moore, Sergeant Bennett, Constables McLean, Geronimo, and Woodward. And I don't want to forget the fire agency here this morning, no? Let me point out the really, really important people in the room, and these are some of the folks that are at Town Hall who keep our municipality operating the way it should. So we also have Carrie Holmes here this morning. Carrie? Jennifer sitting at the table in September. Chrissy Stevens. I saw Chrissy here this morning. Where are you, Chrissy? Is Alan here?
No, he's office managed today.
I just wanted to make a mention. I'm sure that many of you have read about this, particularly in last week's paper, but there was the Jennifer Woodward Memorial Tournament that happened in Hollywood, and it was ongoing until this year. It was the 12th year. And Carrie, I know that you, your family, and a tremendous contingent of ladies from not only the Honeywood but surrounding area had raised close to $600,000. Unbelievable. $600,000. Too, so I know it was last year, but you know, it was just incredible. Just incredible. So as I said, in just a moment, I'll turn the mic over to Carol for an EDC update, following which it's going to give me some great pleasure to introduce you to our keynote, our guest speaker this morning, Mr. Scott McNeil-Smith. Scott is with us this morning. Scott and I did have the opportunity to speak briefly yesterday, so Scott, I'm looking forward to what you've got to tell us.
No pressure.
This morning, no pressure at all. And following Scott, we are going to open up the floor to you and any of the questions that you may have regarding economic development for the town of Shelburne. And our panelists this morning, again, will include our Chief Administrative Officer, Jason Morrissey, Mayor Wade Mills. But we also have Sharon Grant. Sharon Grant is our local real estate expert. Sharon, you're going to be joining us as one of our panelists. Steve Weaver. Steve is with GSP Group and our town planner, so Steve's going to join us as a panelist later on. And finally, Andrew from Tribute Communities. Andrew Cox is the Director of Market Research. You're going to be one of our panelists, so welcome, Andrew. Thanks very much. And certainly please do during our breaks, stop by the booths that you see around the room here. Say hello to Ellen Sinclair from our Small Business Enterprise Center. I don't know if anybody has noticed, but the SPEC, as we refer to it, has been far more active than now here in Shelburne weekly. Is that correct, Carol? So that's been a lot of coordination between the folks responsible for the small business enterprise in Orangeville and Carol Maitland. So please make sure you stop by and say hello to Ellen. I know Ruth, I mentioned that I know that I saw you here this morning. You were really an instigator and an incubator of SPEC, were you not? And you are now economic development and culture for Orangeville. Yeah. And I can tell you 30 years later, I'm okay with the fact that you didn't leave high school. We also have Diana Morris here this morning. Diana, you in the room somewhere? Diana is here with the Dublin Board of Trade. And finally, we're joined this morning by Glenn Gamolka. Glenn, you're sitting over there. Glenn is the Executive Director for Sustained Mobility. Is that correct, Glenn? Yeah. And Glenn, as I understand, you've got a real passion for delivering healthy transportation alternatives here in Ontario. And you're going to tell us a little bit more a little bit later, correct? And last but not least, we hope that you're able to stick around this morning. We do have a workshop with Carolyn Ellis. Carolyn is here on stage with us this morning. And Carolyn is going to be walking us through defrag your brain. Defrag your brain, the power of visual thinking. So what I'd like you to do is just close your eyes for a moment, Carolyn. Just close your eyes, listen to my voice. And you're picturing somebody about 6'2", 6'4", right? So Carolyn, you're actually going to be visually recording this morning's event. So for those of you who are able to stick around, it sounds very exciting. So at this time, allow me to turn your attention and the podium over to Carol Maitland. Carol?
My second job as an IT guy.
We have over 1,500 followers on our Facebook page currently. When I started this job, we had something like 60 followers. And through the span, we've grown quite a bit. We also have a new engagement tool called Have Your Say Shelburne. So if you haven't had a chance to visit it, you should. It's fantastic. It's an opportunity for everyone in this room to have a say. There's a tool on the site that allows you to make comments, to provide some sort of insight. It also allows us to do quick surveys. So whenever you see something come up on Facebook or have an opportunity, or if you have a great idea and you want to just put it on the board, there's an opportunity to do that. Last year we registered 14 new businesses in the town of Shelburne. A lot of them were service related, but again, we are growing, and it's good to see that we are developing new businesses.
So are there new businesses here with us that have opened in the last year? Anybody? Show of hands. Can I just get you to... Hey, welcome! Welcome to town Shelburne!
One of the new things that's coming forward is our new website. As you can see, it's quite different than the site that we have currently. We're hoping that it'll be much more engaging, much easier to navigate than our current site. And hopefully everyone will have an opportunity to use it and engage with the town. One of the big projects that we undertook last year was our community improvement plan. The purpose of the community improvement plan was essentially to develop a template that would help guide a vision for the downtown core and the surrounding businesses areas within the town of Shelburne. The outcome of the CIP would be hopefully to develop a revitalization strategy that would promote improvement and beautification of streets, parks, and buildings. A total of 3 visioning workshops were conducted in which the community had an opportunity to provide input. From those workshops, 12 big moves were developed. The workshops generated over 200, the workshops generated 12 big moves. The survey was put online and over 212 people actually voted on the 12 big moves. So I'm going to highlight the moves that were the most popular. If you look around the room, what I've done is I've asked the Cal to put the posters up, so if you have time, you should just take a look at the posters. You'll see what each of the 12 big moves are, and they're quite detailed. So, buildings. 94% of the people who voted on buildings definitely promoted the idea of having a wider range of retail and commercial services in the downtown buildings. I think that's something that we can all agree on. Under the public realm, the revamp of Fiddle Park was one of the most popular ideas that came out of the group, and 86% of people voted to have some sort of redesign of Fiddle Park that would be more of a community hub. And finally, mobility. 91% of the people felt that a more connected Shelburne through trails, sidewalks, to promote a connected, healthy community would be very effective. What's coming next? Community workshop, we're moving into our final stage. The open house will be on May 24th, and I hope everyone has the opportunity to attend the open house. It will be at the Grace Tiffin Hall, and it will run from approximately 4:30 till 6:30. And during that time, they will be reviewing the 12 big steps and asking for additional input before creating the final plan. So at this time, I'm going to ask, we're going to get into the Shelburne Neighborhood Design Survey, which was another one of our big projects. And Amanda? Great. So Amanda's going to explain what the project was about and what the outcomes were.
Good morning, everyone. So I was asked to provide a really quick overview of the project that we called the Neighborhood Design Survey last year with Shelburne residents, and it also included a survey with local business owners as well. So what we were doing with this Neighborhood Design Survey was trying to determine how well the built environment and the community design within Shelburne supports not only the health of residents, but also provides economic benefits as well. So it's well known that certain neighborhood design and principles support the health of residents, but it's not as well known that it also encourages economic development. So we used imagery questions to ask residents which neighborhoods they would prefer. So in that first image there, if you can see it, we were talking about compact and mixed-use design. So having homes close to businesses and services. In the second one there, we were talking about connectivity of neighborhoods. Are residents feeling connected to services, to facilities, and other destinations that they travel to on a daily basis? What we found in the survey was that residents did feel that their neighborhoods were mixed use. Only half felt that they were connected. Most of the residents preferred the mixed use design as well as the connected neighborhood design. And that also coincides with what Carol just presented from the big moves. So we're really seeing that residents do value mixed-use designs and connectivity of their neighborhoods, and they see the health benefits to them as well. So not only are these types of neighborhoods encouraging active transportation and travel, we're encouraging residents to use less vehicles, so there's less emissions to our neighborhood. There's less energy use, less infrastructure costs, and people are staying in the community and utilizing the local services and businesses. We asked residents about how they travel within their neighborhood. We found that 86% of residents could walk, bike, or roll, that's what we call active transportation, to at least 6 of 14 locations that were listed. Some of the most frequently selected locations were parks and green spaces, schools, grocery stores, and local stores and shops. So again, when residents felt they could actively travel to get there, they were utilizing those modes of travel as opposed to using their cars. We asked residents as well which types of features they would like to see in their neighborhoods, or which features they felt were important to a neighborhood. So we saw things like street trees, social gathering spots, nearby natural features, connected active travel system, heritage buildings. So these are similar, again, to what you saw in the 12 moves. So it's really neat. The whole project was conducted to inform the community improvement plan as well as to get some ideas from residents on their preferences and opinions on how to revitalize the town, increase tourism, and prepare for sustainability of a growing community. Some of the top locations that residents felt that they wanted to be able to travel actively to were community life destinations. So those are things like the services, healthcare providers, the grocery store, farmers markets, local stores and shops. And then we see the recreation destinations. They want to be able to walk, bike, or roll to natural heritage and to outdoor recreation destinations and green spaces. Some of the questions asked residents features that would encourage them to spend more time downtown or shopping locally. So some of the responses that we saw, events and activities, more store selection, town character, active travel-friendly amenities. So we're implying, just giving you a highlight. We did create an entire report that will be available on the website following this meeting as well. So you can see these in finer detail and more information there. So with the business owners, we asked similar questions, and these are some of the things that business owners reported as important for revitalizing downtown. Building property improvements, less transport traffic, again, active travel-friendly amenities, downtown events and activities. A lot of similarities between the residents and the business owners. So going forward, we're going to utilize these results. We're sharing them with people like yourselves, business owners. It's important for you to know what the residents are looking for, what they value, and what their opinions and preferences are for the town of Shelburne. And going forward, we're going to be working with the EDC on putting some recommendations that we developed collaboratively in terms of exploring further things of how we can make residents feel connected. Something, we did this study with other communities, local communities as well, and we actually looked at physical design indicators, so we could explore further, aside from just the resident surveys. We can really check, is there parks, is there trails, is there pathways that are providing those connections to the destinations within the community, and these things were really filling those gaps that were lacking from the survey itself, but really just partnering and trying to build the community, a sustainable community for the future. That's it.
So finally, I'd just like to introduce everybody to Glenn, who's coming up and doing this to speak. Town of Shelburne has recently partnered with Clean Ontario, and Glenn is going to provide a bit of an overview of what the program is about. But I do believe that it will help solve some of the issues that we've been hearing as EDC, that it's difficult for our youth to get around town, to commute, and also because we are a commuter town, people finding being able to easily find transportation to Warrenville or to Brampton. So this is an opportunity for town of Shelburne to address some of those issues. So Glenn.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for having me here today. It's great to be here talking to the business community in Shelburne. And really, there's so much interest in commuting and being active and sustainable. I'm going to be really quick because I think Carol gave me a great spot right by the food, so I think I nabbed a lot of them on the way to breakfast this morning. And in your your takeaway bags, there's lots of information about the program, and I'll stay around after and grab a business card and maybe we can connect that at the end of the morning this morning. But really, I just want to introduce you to Commute Ontario. I've been doing sustainable commuting programs for companies, for post-secondary institutions since 2006. And we've recently launched this program across the province of Ontario. It's about getting people to travel on a daily basis using any mode except for driving alone. So the poster here says driving or commuting is not synonymous with driving. There are other ways to get to and from work, to be more active, more productive, and to save money as well. The program is completely free of charge. We're funded through an Ontario Trillium Foundation grant for the next 3 years. So this is a great opportunity for businesses and for commuters to try out the program and enjoy the benefits. I was meeting with the Ministry of Transportation just last week, and I showed them this slide, and they said, Shelburne, Orangeville, why are they interested in this program? Because when people think about commuting, they think about the congested areas of Toronto. I live in Mississauga, which is getting very congested as well. And they were surprised that there would be interest from some of the more rural communities around the province. We're actually finding that we're getting lots of interest from rural communities for the reasons that Carol mentioned, getting people to and from work, but also I think residents, no matter where they are, they want to be more active, they want to be healthier, they want to use active modes of transportation, but they need a little bit of an encouragement for sustainability, and I have my business card with me here today, so I hope I'll get a chance to talk about many of you before the meeting's over. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm going to follow this back out. But before I go, I just want to say that there are a few upcoming events. We have our first ever job fair coming to Shelburne on May 7th. We're expecting over 200 grade 12 graduating students to be attending the job fair. We're also hoping to have a fairly good selection of tradespeople there. Our next event is another event coming up is on May 24th, which is going to be our community improvement plan, which I previously outlined. That will be at the Grace Tickling Hall. And finally, our EDC golf tournament will be June 6th this year, so that will be up fairly soon if anyone wants to register early. Okay.
Thanks very much. It was mid-70s, I guess, when I moved to Shelburne, so it was greater than 30 years ago. I was actually in this Legion celebrating my wedding anniversary at the time. I believe the meal was catered likely by the Legion ladies, it might have been the Lions ladies, but at the time, I knew everybody. They knew my family, they knew my wife's family. man with a lot of changes that occurred over the last 30 or 40 years. I kid my wife that we're now referred to as the old couple still living on the street. But when you talk about traffic, I mean, this morning, you know, Denise and I were commenting that I normally get on the road, I commute, I normally get on the road at 6:30 in the morning. I can't believe the cars that are heading north. I'm assuming, Shane, that they're coming to see and work with you as an associate at KTH, but you know, Denise had mentioned that she drives into the Mansfield area, and the cars coming down from Collingwood and areas like that are just incredible. And unfortunately, MPP, our local MPP, Sylvia Jones, I don't think was able to be with us this morning, or we would have been able to corral her and talk about a truck downtown bypass route with her this morning. But so, gotcha. So this time, it does give me some great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker this morning, Scott McNeil-Smith. For the past 30 years, Scott has worked with corporate, industrial, commercial, and nonprofit sector organizations. Currently, Scott is the National Director, Projects in Partnership with EMC, which is Excellence in Manufacturing Consortium, a nonprofit. He's also Energy Program Lead for its manufacturing and industrial members. Scott holds an Honors Bachelor of Business Administration, or BBA, in Economics from York University. And he's played a key role in helping grow a nonprofit from what was originally, Scott, an 18-member local association in Canada's largest manufacturing consortium that literally has generated hundreds of millions of dollars in economic opportunities for both Canadian manufacturers, but their surrounding communities as well. Scott also has holds several other board positions with profit and not-for-profit organizations, and remains active in awareness and raising funds for several charitable organizations. Personally, Scott, I know that you mentioned to me that you've been married for 30 years to your wife, Lori, and kind of shared something in common. Scott had mentioned that he's been coaching or in and around hockey for greater than 17 years, starting at tight all the way through junior, and played a big part of hockey skills development in Canada. So I understand that passion. I know that there's many folks in the room here that I've shared some ice and some bench time with as well. So Scott, great pleasure to have you with us this morning. And if I would just ask you about Kelly.
Well, good morning again. Thanks for having me, everybody, and thanks, Mike, for leading us in song. I was standing right beside the speaker, and unfortunately that meant none of you could hear me. That's a good thing, and thanks for not reading the whole bio. When I was talking to Mike yesterday, I said usually, first of all, it just makes me feel old. The second is, I said just look me up, Google me, Google EMC, but I will caution you, you scroll down a few pages and you're going to find a male exotic dancer in Australia with the same name. It's not me. It took me almost a whole weekend to convince my mom. Look, Mom, it's a whole different guy, okay? I mean, look at that. Anyway. I'm always amazed at how many people pick up their phones and start doing this as soon as I say that. So I can't don't go there. So we're going to cover some things off, and of course from the perspective of manufacturing, and that's where I focus. But there are a lot of lessons here for all businesses. And so when you look at what happens in the manufacturing world, and the manufacturers in your community, that's something that I think you can then kind of integrate into your business thinking. If you can support manufacturers, how can that benefit your business? And so that's something we're going to go through. So we're going to talk about some of the issues, impacts in particular workforce, and some of the critical issues that are being faced, and what's coming in the future. And I'm not going to, there's some slides here I'll skip over. I will make available a digital handout package through Carol, I guess, if you're interested or you want to look at some of the data. Some of it might be a little bit hard to see on the screen. So just very quickly, EMC is a unique not-for-profit organization, as Mike said. We've grown significantly in the past 30 years. The mission of EMC really, in a nutshell, is to help manufacturers in whatever they do. We're seen as a community partner, but whether it's quality, production, maintenance, energy, health and safety, HR, whatever, our goal is to help our manufacturers stay alive and kicking and employing right here in the community. And whatever it takes for us to do that, that's something that we're looking for. This is kind of a cluster of where our networks are across Canada. We even have one member up in Whitehorse who participates through our online programs. And here are our clusters throughout Ontario. If you're a manufacturer or you're related to industry, either through supply chain or another relationship, I'd encourage you to reach out to Tanya. Tanya, want to raise your hand? Tanya is our field service advisor and looks after this part of Ontario. Works directly with all of our manufacturers. So issues affecting manufacturing. Quite often when I'm talking with a group, I'm asked, why manufacturing? A lot of communities will focus on retail or commercial or tourism, and those are all good things to look at. If you've got manufacturers in your community, it's actually the most rapid way you can affect positive economic change in the shortest amount of time. I had a university professor that kind of drilled into my head that there's only 3 true ways you can create new wealth in an economy. You build it, you grow it, you dig it out of the ground. Everything else is moving money around transactionally, essentially from one pile to another. And I've got a lot of banking friends that always stick their hand up and say, hey, I like moving money around from one pile to another. But that's distributional wealth versus creating new wealth. So it's something that if you invest $1 in manufacturing today, you're going to get a result today. If you invest $1 in agriculture, construction, or any of the other developmental sectors, you're going to get a result next season, next quarter, next year, whenever that comes to fruition. So industry has a very rapid effect on an economy. Every year we talk to our senior plant managers throughout the country and we ask them what their key issues are, what their challenges are. So directly from the manufacturers themselves, these are the top challenges that they identified for 2019. Skills and labor shortage at the top of the list. Increasing costs of manufacturing, of course, that affects all of our businesses. That broke down into energy costs, HR and labor costs, and most interestingly, cost of legislation, significant in the province of Ontario. And then looking at other issues related to business development, competition, finding new customers. This is the full list. I apologize, it might be a little bit hard to see in the back. But the top 3 issues there, skill shortage, cost control, and technology upgrade rank in the top 3. And for the first time in 18 years of the survey, we're in the beginning of our 2019 survey for 2020. Cybersecurity and digital security have appeared on the list, and they're ranking currently in the top 5, with that survey still underway for about another 6 weeks. We also asked them what changes they're anticipating. And so this is something that's important to any business that might service or support manufacturing in the community as well. Investing in new products or production, equipment and processes, hiring new employees, adding lines of business, etc. And so these top items, interestingly, these are primarily positive economic indicators. So anyone that says manufacturing is dead, refer them to me, please. It's not. It's certainly a very challenging sector of the economy, but it's also one of the most contributory. This was the cover of the Globe and Mail one Saturday in 2004. I don't know if anyone has a Globe and Mail subscription, but it arrived on my driveway and it was about that thick. And the whole theme of this was about the impact of China and what was coming. And Philip Crawley, who was the then publisher, gave us permission to use excerpts from the whole issue and provided those digitally to us. But essentially everything in that particular issue of the Globe has come true. And there's still some of their predictions that are developing that haven't yet come true. We're starting to see some full circle with industry that had left, now coming back, and distribution of manufacturing to other parts of the world. The challenge is that increased competition from everywhere versus specific countries has presented definite challenges for Canadian manufacturers. And in particular, countries that don't have the same regulations that we have here, countries that don't practice the same human rights and care for their employees that we do here. It's not a level playing field. So we have to look at ways that we can do what we need to do here in Canada and in Ontario without creating an environment for manufacturers that makes it more advantageous to move somewhere else. And so that's something that is key. Regardless of your political persuasion, that's something that if you want to keep your manufacturer alive and well and kicking in this community, you need to pay attention to what's going on elsewhere in the world, because that's quite important. And then the Amazon influence, this is more of a mindset, a way of interacting with customers. That is a new evolution in the last 10 years. Opportunities certainly exist through technology and other means to help your industry to grow and become more competitive, and as a result, your businesses to grow at the same time. But there are resources that need to be engaged, and some of those are delivered through Tanya locally, and others we provide through our national efforts. So this is just a kind of an interesting snapshot of where activity is happening. So you can see in the gray, this is where manufacturers are recruiting, so you can see percentages, a little small, I apologize, of where they're recruiting locally, nationally, provincially, etc., and also manufacturing and where they're selling. What this is an indication, none of these categories are maxed out from either a selling or, in the case of international, in the case export, or recruiting or manufacturing. It means there's room to grow in each of those categories. So there's definitely still opportunity for manufacturing. So workforce impact. So one of the top issues now, which it was always ranked 2 or 3 in the past, skill shortages. For the first time in 7 years, skill shortage has overtaken cost control as the top issue identified by our manufacturing leaders throughout Canada. And these are, we're talking thousands of companies that reply to this survey. And so finding those right skilled workers is an issue. It's certainly a media topic. Is there really a skill shortage? We have lots of vacancies, but we have lots of people unemployed. What's the problem? But the problem is not every company, not every region needs the same skill set. And so it's not a cookie-cutter situation, and not every region has the skills that their local businesses need. Maybe just by a show of hands, how many companies here, how many business owners are looking for people right now? Whether you publish this or not. Right up. Good, thank you. So that's something that we've got members that have published robust employment opportunities, that these jobs have been posted for more than a year, and they've gone unfilled. So there's opportunities everywhere. And in the particular study that I'm referencing, more than half of the companies that have replied said if the right skills landed on their door, they hired them on the spot. And so that is definitely a positive economic indicator. So just, and this is kind of news, I'm just going to skip through this part quickly. Obviously manufacturing, the largest percentage of the employment workforce is over 90% full-time, so high-value employment. Unfortunately, it's also an aging population, it's an aging workforce in the manufacturing world. That can affect productivity, but we're going to talk a little bit about some of the technology that's coming into play and how that can actually help an older workforce and not necessarily hurt it. Replacement rates, turnover and so forth, higher in manufacturing than any other sector in Canada. That's a challenge for industry. Some manufacturers are struggling not only to fill positions, but then retain the employees while they're there. The causes of hard to fill vacancies. This one is a little bit interesting in that this category right here lack the number of applicants is one of the biggest growth areas. So we're seeing an increase in manufacturers reporting in the last 3 years that they're getting fewer and fewer applicants. And so it's part of it is demographics for the different regions, but part of it is to do with they're just not getting the resumes when they post the jobs. They're not getting the application. And that's, I think, a challenge for the community itself, for all businesses, is to make sure you've got a steady supply of workers coming into the market as well. So this, I'm not going to go through each one of these points, but the one piece I want to point out right here, 87% local employers, and this is from a manufacturing perspective, 87% of manufacturers in the various regions throughout Canada are relying solely or predominantly on the local labor market to fill their positions. That means that they're competing, and you're competing, with every other business in the room for that talent. And so that's something that you need to look at from a strategy perspective, especially if you haven't been able to fill those positions. Look outside, look regionally, provincially, maybe even nationally. And a few of the larger multinational companies also look to international for sourcing certain positions, because the local labor market is not enough to sustain continued economic growth. We also ask that plant management what they need from a skills perspective. So this is their first, second, and third choices: staff, management, supervisory, communication, problem solving, technical skills, etc. So a really good indicator of what's required. So when you're looking at this sort of information, you've got industry in your community, you've got others in your community. If you're a provider of training or skills, if you're connected to community college or other programs, this is important to know so that that can be provided to your local industry based on their needs. And this is just the training related to that. So the top reason for offering training, this is the biggest growth answer for this particular question, is to adopt new technology. So one of the items, the changes in the top issues for manufacturing was the adoption of new technology. There are also corresponding increases in the requirement of skills for that, and it's hard. We had an IT position posted for 2 years. Our head office is based out of Owen Sound, and it was even a position that could be remotely accessed. And we had 2 applicants over the 2-year period, and both were from outside of Canada. And so it's interesting how difficult it is for some positions. So when we talk about the future of manufacturing, and I think everyone's probably heard of the 4th Industrial Revolution or 4.0 or the Internet of Things, many different references and definitions to what it might be. In a nutshell, and this was from a person who works for Tata Consultancy, and this is a quote from Klaus Schwab, and it's about the Great Reset. And what he's talking about in this quote is essentially, we're trying to do next generation things with an infrastructure from the last century and institutions from the century before that. And it's going to take a really big mindset shift, not only a technology shift and a knowledge shift to get there. And it's going to cause a reset within our thinking, not just in manufacturing, but within all business. And I think many of you may have experienced that. If we have any restaurant owners in the crowd, how many of you now have online menus and online order taking and or online reservation taking? That didn't exist a number of years ago. Now with Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes, Zaps, and everything else, everything has become connected. And my 3 boys, if you ask them a question, the first thing they do is pick up the phone. And they've got the answer in 5 seconds. That's how quickly a lot of the decisions are being made, but business isn't there yet, and that's something that we need to address. And I apologize for the fuzzy chart here, but this is just kind of a quick and dirty map of the 4 different industrial revolutions, beginning from the initial mechanical production-based or tool-based activity through mass production, the integration of IT and electronics, and then where we're headed with cyber systems, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, etc., robotics, advanced materials. And this is from the National Research Council. These are the primary new technologies behind this. So any businesses that are looking or can support these areas are already at the initial stages of being ready for that next revolution in manufacturing business. And this is from CP Insights. This is just a kind of a quick and dirty map of what a factory of the future might look like. A little more directly connected. There are still people involved, but processes and things that are redundant or repetitive can be changed. Now, what most people think is that automation is going to kill jobs. In some cases, that might be the result, but if handled correctly, automation in the future of manufacturing will actually create more advanced jobs and maybe cause a retooling of jobs, but not necessarily losing the people involved to any great extent. There is some attrition that's forecast, but not as great as you might think. And so, just when will this arrive? So part of the a study that the World Economic Forum completed last year, they asked what, and these were employers that they were asking, when these technologies were going to come to bear. And so some of the interesting ones, I mean, connected clothing, some of that's already here. The first robotic pharmacist, that technology is actually already there. There's medication dispensers that already do this, but overseen by an actual person. But automated pharmacies is another area. 3D printing, that's something that's pretty much here. 90% of the population with regular access to the internet. That might seem like, well, doesn't everyone have access now? Well, maybe in Canada, and even in Canada, it's not 100%. But a lot of developing nations that don't have access. Driverless cars, equaling 10% of the cars on the road. That was something I thought, if we get there by 2025, I'm still waiting for my flying DeLorean. But I was disappointed when we got to the 30-year mark after that movie, and neither a hoverboard or a DeLorean. The one that I'm not too sure about is the last one. The first AI machine on a corporate board of directors. I think we need to build a little bit more diversity in our corporate boards of directors before we allow a computer to sit in on any of those meetings. I think we have enough computer heads sitting in some of them. Interestingly, the first city with more than 50,000 people and no traffic lights. I would welcome that. And there are some actually that could get there with turning circles, and there's a few communities in Europe that have done that with strictly with turning circles. That again presents its own challenge. Anyone who's driven through the new turning circles out the west end of town. So just, I'm not going to get too much into this, but just a quick snapshot of, there's 33 future work reports out there right now, 23 in Canada. And they're all coming up with very similar information related to technological advancements, demographic shifts, and climate change. I got to say, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, but climate change is probably going to be one of the greatest and severest impacts on all business in the next 20 years. And you think that humans have been around on the planet for 100, maybe 1,000 years. There's a very thin, narrow window in which we can survive. And we are actually at the top edge, and in some parts of the planet, just over that top edge of livability. So we're going to see some even more increasingly drastic changes. I don't know how many of you remember, and again, I'm probably aging myself, you drive along Highway 10 30, 40, 50 years ago, and remember the snowbanks that almost went up to the power wires. And by the way, the school buses still ran. No offense to anyone in the room. And now Maitiland. So that's where you get solid snow from once winter started right through to the spring. And the snow line is now about 45 minutes north of Owen Sound. And so you're going up the other side of Georgian Bay, and that's where the permanent snowpack is winter to spring. So, that's something that's the biggest change that I notice, and aside from the most extreme weather. So when we look at where manufacturing is going, innovation is a word that's been thrown around quite a bit, and not just in manufacturing, but in all sectors. But what you're looking for, and where you're looking for your business opportunities for your local business, is what is the path to disruption? And so how many of you remember the days in the 90s, and I'm going to take myself again, but so be it, I've got the bald spot. You head out in the morning, you say, Mom, I'm going out to play with my friends, and you're gone for the day, and I'm pretty sure my parents didn't worry or bother where I was. I'd come back before supper time and all was good. I did not have a phone in my pocket. I did not send 12,000 texts in a month like one of my boys. And that's something that we didn't have. We didn't think about it. But today, how many of you, show of hands, have a phone in front of you or in your pocket right now? There you go. That's disruption. So basically, the stages there, you go from doing the same things better to doing new things, that make the old stuff obsolete. And so that's where we are with mobile communication. That's where we are in many cases with computers. We went from nobody having a computer to very few having a computer to everyone having a computer. Things like typing skills. You learn in high school, and there are 3-year-olds that can type 60 words a minute now. So that's something that is an important development to recognize. I'm not going to go through all of this, but when you're looking at your package, you can see the progression of those technologies. And this, we're going back only to 1995, but we're looking forward past 2025 and where these new next disruptive technologies, so supercomputer, advanced robotics, the smart home is one of those key things. And I'm halfway through there. We started a half hour late. Thanks. I don't remember that being on. So where we're at with the rate of change, right now the machines are winning. And I'm not saying this to scare anyone. This is actually an opportunity here. So you can see the We Are Here dot, learning fast and governing smarter will help human adaptability to catch up somewhat, although the curve at which technologies change is much more rapid than the humans are. So these are the skills that are from 2015 and what we're anticipating for 2020, where we're heading with that. Again, for the next many years, these are the next kind of generation. What was considered to be critical thinking in the past will become common knowledge versus how much you knew in that same age. The level of knowledge is just something that's improved significantly. And something that manufacturers are realizing. And there's a lot of kerfuffle about the new minimum wage when it came in, and I know it impacted a lot of businesses. And I'm not making a political commentary on that reality, but most manufacturers were not paying a minimum wage for a lot of their positions. And so this is a recognition that they've long held in many companies. Skilled labor isn't cheap, and cheap labor isn't skilled. Now, it's a bit of a perception, but what it's leading to is that many manufacturers are now hiring for fit, meaning they're looking for the right kind of people to fit into their environment, and they're teaching everything else. And with the rapid changes in knowledge and skills, that's something that's key. So I'm just going to jump. This is something, if you get a chance to look at the package afterwards, take a quick look. It's a bit of a curve, so on the left, starting from the internet down into genomics and drones, and then the middle, the black section there, are the societal impacts, and then up the right-hand side are the future technologies. Some of those are here already, but that's something to take a look at. So as I mentioned, climate change is the most threatening prospect right now for future business. The technological unemployment is something that is important to look at, but it's not here yet. But looking in 2030, 25% fewer workers are anticipated to be needed within the primary employment sectors. That's not a doomsday scenario. That's actually not too bad. There is an opportunity there. The pace of change is going to be a challenge for many, but as the rapid advances in technology combined with our aging workforce, some of that technology is going to offset. We already see on many production lines harnesses that almost look like exoskeleton suits that increase employee strength for moving parts around and eliminates a lot of strain on backs and things like that. So some of that's here already. This is just a path innovation. I don't have time to go through that. So these are, on the left, some of the advancements that are occurring, and then the key questions related to that. So one of the big issues, and I think it should be important to the folks here, how do we prepare the students to become employees, and how do we prepare those employees to take on jobs that we don't even know will exist yet? That's a big challenge. And we're heading to a gap there. The ongoing skills development is important, and not just through the school system. It's important to start early, so even before high school. What types of jobs will be created? That's something we're looking at as well. The demographic shift is going to be an issue. When you've got a growing community like this one, I think you're well suited to address this. But it is something that potential businesses will look at. Not just your unemployment rate, but what is the skill set that exists within the community, and what is the community's ability to attract new skill sets or develop skill sets. That's something that will be coming. So one of the things that we're doing, and this is really how you can engage, we're launching regional advanced manufacturing productivity hubs, or ramp hubs as we call them, in different parts of Canada, to address some of these technological issues, to help the industry to adapt and move forward. Energy is a big issue, so we're looking at solutions and strategies to help industry. We've helped a lot of our members to put strategy in place. We were surprised to learn that more than 30% of manufacturing businesses don't have an energy procurement strategy in place. So we're helping there, and unfortunately legislative costs are killing competitiveness. You've all probably experienced this with your own energy bills. The province is trying to do something, but the problem isn't going away. Cybersecurity, just quickly, cybersecurity, manufacturers are being hacked. How many here know they've had a cyber incursion of some sort? Meaning you've answered a phishing email one of your employees has. It's something that is growing, unfortunately. I think the town of Sega Beach was held ransom. Their networks were held ransom for a sum of money. But it could be anything from ransomware to loss of information to loss of intellectual property. There's just some data about the issues there. And so I mentioned the survey that's underway. If you're a manufacturing person, you're interested, reach out to Tanya or DMC. There's a survey that's in the market right now that provides great benchmarking information if you're interested. We also have a national employer survey right now that covers 80 occupations and 14 different subsectors of industry. That's been underway for a few years now. Good value there. We have a certification training program to address some of these future skills requirements. Right now we have a funded program, so if you're in an industry or a related sector, there's free training available for your production workers and or supervisors. And in the fall, we have our next national conference, which is the Future of Manufacturing, with 5 streams: advanced manufacturing, innovation, export development and growth, operational excellence, and the future state of manufacturing. If you're interested, we'll be in Vaughan, so not too far away. And we're expecting between 500 and 900 manufacturing engagement across Canada. And just a final thought. So somewhere in here is us, and we need to find a way to success. And that's what we're trying to do every day. And I'm sorry for skipping through some of the slides there, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Scott. For me personally, you don't realize what you don't know until somebody stands up and tells you what you don't know. It certainly puts it all into perspective. It's, I manage a technology-based marketing agency, and I can tell you, Scott, that over the last several years in particular, and we do business with clients like Diageo and three companies and things like that. We do a lot of online work for them. Over the last 2 years in particular, we've had to spend a tremendous amount of energy and effort being WASP compliant, making sure PCI card compliant, security, and even our own organization has been under a lot of DDoS attacks in the last several years. So it certainly puts it into perspective for sure.
An interesting story, maybe an anecdote related to that. There's a manufacturer in the U.S., an apparel manufacturer. One of their employees was working on a Saturday and decided that he was going to go grab some lunch, brought his laptop with him, and set up in the coffee shop while he was eating. And it was a public Wi-Fi network. And went back to the business, plugged back in, and that put him inside the firewall. And as a result, the malware that installed on his computer in the coffee shop, unbeknownst to him, became the reason why his company lost 14 servers worldwide and was out of business for a week and a half. One simple, innocuous, it's something to do with.
Are there any questions from any of you for Scott or he's here this morning? Anybody?
We always ask the people in the back first.
Anything else? Again, Scott, greatly appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.
To maintain the essential services for our residents.
Thank you, Mayor Mills.
Question?
Mayor Brown?
Yeah. To Sharon, just wondering what the temperature of the local residential real estate market is now, Sharon. What are we looking at going forward?
We're not 2017, right. When it was frantic, but we are actually, this time in this year, doing extremely well in Shelburne. Things are picking up, things are selling. Last year it was slow, but it was slow. But this year it seems to be, I think we're going to have an excellent year. People are adjusting, and we're selling houses now, which is a little harder to do last year. You know, people are still thinking of Shelburne as a great place to live and a great place to invest. Still hear that all the time. You go down the road and you talk to people in the south and you mention Shelburne, and they say, Shelburne, I know where that is. My cousin lives there, my boss lives there, and I want to live there too, but not yet, but I'm coming. So we're still a good town.
Just out of curiosity, Sharon, how many listings are there in town presently? Did you?
Last I looked, about 44, somewhere between 42 and 48, which is about a 4-month supply.
And that's what the turnover is? I mean, days on the market now, as an example, compared to...
Days on the market for houses itself, just under 60 days.
Just under 60 days? Wow. That, I don't, sorry, Andrew, you have a comment?
Yeah, good morning. Just want to comment on the new home side, just to echo off what Sharon is saying. The last few years we've seen new housing policies that have kind of implemented and shaped the way that the market has operated, and I think it's time now where people have adjusted. People are coming to grips of what the market is, and on the new home side, we're starting to see a lot more traffic roll through Highland Village. I think confidence is back. People are reassured that there is no crash coming, as many have doomed and gloomed in the media. You got to kind of read through it. We've had a really brutal winter in comparison to the last, I'd say, last 5 years, where it's long, cold. People are starting to come out now. People are starting to adapt to that nice warm weather and visit sales offices and visit open houses. We are really positive about 2019, and traffic is significantly picked up in that regard.
Now, when you say changes to how, are you talking about the new stress test rules in particular, Andrew? Is that-
Yes. That is probably one of the biggest major factors that have contributed to a bit of a slowdown. If you roll back to April 2017, well, there's four major, in my honest opinion, four major significant proposed or new policies that have hit the market, housing market. Since April 2017, you have the Fair Housing Plan, brought in with rent controls and the foreign buyers tax, and then you roll into the proposed changes to the growth plan. Maybe you want to touch upon that, but that certainly changed density targets, major transit areas, and then you roll through to the new stress test. That probably had the most massive influence on the way people are buying. And then now the new proposed liberal federal budget pertaining to the first-time buyers and affordability. Look, to make it work, to make this housing market work, all levels of government have to be speaking to one another, from a municipal, provincial, and federal. That's one of the major ways that the market will grow better. 100,000 people come to the GTA every year. So if you do simple math, back of envelope, 2.5 people per household, it's 40,000 units that we have to accommodate these new families. And whether they rent or buy, it's a matter of economics, but we have to make it work. The GGH is one of the massive hubs in terms of growth and growth and development, and we have to make it work. And we all have to basically make a better property market together.
Thanks, Andrew. Now, just out of curiosity, and we're going to put a lot of pressure on our council members and town staff that are here, is the town of Shelburne easy to work with? I mean, as a developer, do you find that the town is easy to work with?
100%.
Yeah?
Well, we're going to say no. 100%.
There's actually a special boodle bag for you as you're walking up.
We definitely pick it up, thank you.
Let me quickly shift gears here for a minute. Chief Administrative Officer Morrissey, arts and culture. How important is that, both from a facility standpoint, as well as just regular event planning for the town of Shelburne and economic development?
The non-technical term is super duper. I think the evidence of communities that have revitalized the downtowns, and I'll use Orangeville as an example as well, are demonstrating that when you activate arts and culture, particularly theater, and you mobilize the retail component of your community and your hospitality sector, that enabling from arts and culture will drive your local economy. It also creates connectivity. It allows, I guess, the vibrancy and the safety of your community to flourish. Arts and culture is an incubator, and people don't, I think, appreciate that subsidy that comes from the municipal government sector is fundamental to driving the business economy. It also changes the character of your community, which also loans itself to the, I guess, inference, and we know Sylvia will be an amazing advocate for us, that removing the traffic or those impediments to what is a livable community are fundamental to that growth. So we're looking at through the 12 big steps, for example, and we've recognized that Grace Tippling Hall is a gem that just currently is underutilized, and there has to be planning and strategies to enable that facility to drive the activity in our community. And it's not just the downtown. We are 6.6 square kilometers, so we are like a big downtown from end to end. So I think if we set the precedent with arts and culture being the springboard to many other elements of what this economy can be in the future, and the walkability, it's just one part of the puzzle. But we have to have the will and the, I guess, the fortitude to invest in what we call a subsidy, because that subsidy will pay off. And I think, as the mayor said, we have infrastructure challenges. We have to prioritize, though, where those investments are going to be in terms of where we want to be as a community. And council's strategic priorities have identified livability. The acronym that they've come up with is sort of SELL. So sustainability, engagement, livability. And arts and culture play a fundamental role in an amazingly livable and healthy community that also facilitates I think, a well-rounded member of the community, because without arts and culture, you're losing something in terms of the character of who your people can be and will be. So, sorry that was long, it was a little bit of soapbox, and thank you.
Well, thank you. But it sort of begs the next question, Mayor Mills. I mean, I know that Council's been working hard on a 4-year strategic plan. What are there things specifically in that plan that are designed to address economic development in the town of Shelburne?
Yeah, so we're sort of right at the tail end of the development of this plan, and it's just sort of in the final stages of public engagement at this point. But as Denise pointed out, the 3 high-level strategic priorities that we've identified are sustainability, engagement, and livability. And then within each of those, we've drilled down on some fairly precise strategic goals and measurable targets that we're going to look to achieve. Denise talked about arts and culture, so I'll skip forward to a couple more. Probably the biggest direct economic development point that we're looking at, and I think this was sort of a source of agreement for all members of the council, and that is the whole idea that we need to find a better balance when it comes to the growth that we're experiencing. It's no secret to anybody in this room that Shelburne has seen tremendous residential growth over the last number of years, and while that's great, I think there's a recognition that we've reached a point in time where we have to start bolstering commercial and employment growth now to support that residential base that we've had. So I think there's a firm commitment across the board amongst council and staff to do what we can to encourage that commercial, retail, or employment growth. Downtown revitalization is another thing we're looking at quite seriously, working with industrial partners, many of whom are in the room here today. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely some strong economic development themes running through the entire strategic plan, and for anybody who's interested, I think the online engagement portion is still up on our website. How much longer is that up? Till the 26th of this month. So if you have an opportunity, I would encourage you to go online and check that out and add your thoughts and comments to it. Because like I say, we're not quite at the end of it yet, but we are honing in on it, and we'll launch that and formally adopt it probably in May.
Thank you. Questions from the audience? Need the exercise.
I just want to pick up on something that Ms. Morrissey had said about having the town from end to end. That was one of the comments that you made. The other was the bypass. And I'd like to address the bypass first. How would growth in the inner downtown area continue if there was a bypass? Because I'm looking at what had happened with Alston. Once they put in their truck bypass for a very short period of time, I think it was like 18 to 24 months, the downtown core almost died before they brought it back, and then again when they brought in the box stores. So I was wondering whether or not your long-term planning is going to be taking into account how to keep the downtown core vital. Because I imagine that you'd probably come off 24 on one side and, I don't know, what is it, 17 or something on the other. So you'd be bypassing the town totally. That was the first question. The second question is, when you're talking of the downtown business area from end to end, are you physically talking about end to end from 17 to 24? Because there are a group, I'm sure, of entrepreneurs like myself, sole proprietors, who don't have the opportunity to take advantage of any of the BIA because I don't actually have a storefront on that little piece that doesn't really go all that far.
Did you get those two questions?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to answer the second part first. There's been an acknowledgement that the current, I guess, geographic area of the BIA, which is defined geographically by that organization, would benefit from potentially expansion. There's a whole process that's associated with that endeavor that has to be led by the BIA. There are communities that have looked at commercial association districts, they've looked at a different alignment, but that has to be reviewed. Because we're so small geographically, there is advantages for defining the entire community so that the businesses are all networked and aligned. There's a number of ways to do that, so that's something that could be discussed. With respect to the bypass and how it would impact, there's certainly going to be some people that would choose not to come into your community if there's vehicle traffic. The trucks right now, based on our consultative process and what we explained to the minister, are having a serious negative impact on the viability of those businesses and even the people that live in the town. So we believe that if you look at what we've done with the community improvement plan and pair that with the truck rerouting, which we have to struggle with that in itself, that the downtown or the whole community itself would be enough of a destination reason or a reason to be part of your community. If I feel great walking, so when you say the community would be a business within the whole community, because we're so small, we think that's realistic. That you could actually have this character or pilot approach to a community where everybody knows that by supporting local businesses and staying within that geographic area, that's an attractability and a reason to live in that community. So removing trucks from a bypass, we don't believe is going to have such a detrimental effect to the viability of the commercial business and other retail sectors. If we look at other communities like, say, Niagara-on-the-Lake, downtown Oakville, which don't have huge truck traffic going through them, they're very, very busy with pedestrian character. We have to pair that with that as well. So to your answer, I think Orangeville, again, not to put them on a pedestal, but I think the character of their downtown and how vibrant they have become with no trucks and strong arts and culture and hospitality and retail community is something that we would strive for in terms of a benchmark.
I'm just curious, you mentioned that for a period of time, you said that for a period of about 18 months, the Allison Downtown Core had suffered. Do you believe that the Allison Downtown Core is now back live? And
yes, but they picked up a lot from the Cookstown model, where they went into more heritage things, same thing as downtown Orangeville, except they built that waterfall, which is
the bubble bath.
Hopefully Shelburne will do that. But yeah, I mean they got hit twice. Allison had the bypass, and then a number of years later they had a walk stop. And I used to frequent, because when I first moved here in the late 90s, there was a women's store, a men's store, and a shoe store, two really nice Italian, maybe 3-4-star restaurants, and one thing another, and the population was 2,500. Now it's close to 9. And because I was here when they were talking about what they wanted to do with Shelburne Hospital, I was still living in town at that time, and they were talking about basically one of the things that was really, really good about the expansion of 4 lanes from here to Toronto was that it was easier to get to our hospital, or easier to get to our doctors, or on the way home it was a lot easier to stop off at Walmart and pick up stuff instead of shopping here. Now, I'm a small business person, have been for close to 30 years, and I enjoy the camaraderie that you get when you're talking to an owner, but I also like to keep the money close. You know, so I'll go. I won't buy online flowers, I'll go to the florist. I used to buy my clothing here. My late husband used to buy his men's clothing here. The shoe stores are kind of iffy. But we were able to do just about everything here, with the exception of doctors, and that was always a problem with money. But if you're going to be revitalizing the town, I just don't want to see anything happen that's going to, short circuit. Because it is a lot. It's a lot to ask of the store owners to change their storefronts, or to make, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put planters up and down, on the sidewalks. And I was on the EDC 12 years ago. And these were things that were being thrown around, and yeah, that would make the downtown core look absolutely stunning. But not if all of a sudden, by having a bypass, or God forbid, box store coming into an area close enough that it's going to affect. That now all of a sudden, these people have all gone to pocket and we're just yanking out their hands. Even if it's for a short period of time, it still hurts.
A point well taken. Orangeville, you mentioned Alliston, and Denise, you mentioned Orangeville. I was around when they were talking, Sandy, about the redevelopment of the Orangeville racetrack areas. And there was a tremendous uproar with the fact that there was going to be new retail development and big box development. The small business, there's a lot of concern for small business owners at the time. And I think over a period of time, the business community has found that there are needs of the community that are not going to be met by big box. And as much as the community at the time may have argued against, big box retail, the fact was that when the Walmarts of the world opened, they were lined up. The Canadians said, I'm okay with lowering my cost of living. I'm okay with a greater assortment, even if it's at the cost somewhat of some of the quality of the goods. But I think that over the course of time, whether it's Alliston or it's Orangeville, two close examples, both downtown communities have found that waterline about, what the community is looking for, what it needs. And I think one of the greatest things for us is, several years ago, the average age population as measured for us here was 37 years old. I mean, that's unique. So there's a lot of different needs that young communities and young families have. And Denise's concept about bringing the community together from the ability to be able to walk or travel without having to get in your vehicle. I mean, really, we're at the precipice of being able to design a community where it is really an open slate. And I don't know, I can tell you for one, I think that the council of town are going about it, the absolute best means possible, with all the studies and all the planning and all the partners that we're bringing in to ensure that we're trying to miss some of the pitfalls, if at all possible. So I hope that you believe that, but I really think that they're doing a great job from that aspect. And I think that we're going to find that the community is going to dictate what businesses go up and down Main Street. And I think we've seen some recent new businesses go into the downtown area, like Shannon's Tap and Grill as an example, Healthy Cravings, etc. And I think that those businesses are doing relatively well so far. There's some vacant spots, but the great thing is that the more wallets in town, the more people in town, the more desire, the more demand, we're going to get there. I think we're going to get there. I don't think we get there if we get big trucks running up and down Main Street. Other questions from the audience? Mr. Besson?
I'm wondering, Steve, if there's any plans on your table for businesses looking to move forward in an industrial park.
Good question, and there are. We've had a real uptick in real estate sales in the business park. Virtually the entire park has now been sold to individual landowners of individual sites. So the lots have been created. There are now 3 site plan approvals in place, and we do expect to see some construction on probably at least 2 of those sites, maybe 3 this year. We've had a real resurgence of really a new group of people coming out of the GTA, and even local groups coming forward with interest in building something small to start that may evolve into something bigger going forward. So the plans that we're seeing allow for something to start at sort of a smaller scale, but have larger components that could come later. And I think what that's a function of are some of the things that Scott was talking about in his presentation. Some of these businesses are now actually starting to outgrow their existing business locations in the GTA. And so they're looking to places like Shelburne to help supplement their main business operation, but also have greater flexibility in Shelburne to tailor their site and to tailor their buildings to allow them to become manufacturers locally. So the submissions and approvals that have been granted to date are, for example, storage uses, but with the intent that eventually those would become both storage and manufacturing in the longer term. But this is sort of like an initial site development function. And of course there is the, I think many people are aware, there's a cannabis production facility that's been approved in the industrial park. That is going through, Brandon is here today, the proponent of that facility. And that is going through the Health Canada approvals process, and they hope to start construction this year as well. And hopefully, in a few months' time, over the course of the summer, you'll be hearing more about some other industrial developments that are in the works as well. I can't tell you the details of those just yet, but they're coming.
Any other questions from our Mr. Lewis, back of the room?
Yeah, just from a personal perspective, I'd like to know, and perhaps a lot of other people in the room, kind of a timeline we're looking at on the current developments that we have going on at the east end of town and the west end of town. And if possible, any word on who's moving into those locations, or can you say?
So I think there was two questions there. One, timeline on development, and two, can you tell me about the secret of how to get the caramel in the caramel bar?
I'll take one of those two questions. And Andrew might be able to answer the other one. But the timeline, Highland Village is anticipating in the order of about 100 housing starts this year. So the pipes are now on the ground. You'll see, if you've driven out Main Street West in the past several months, you'll see that there's been a lot of construction activity going on there.
Sorry, Steve, Highland Village, you're talking about the development on the east end of town?
No, sorry, Highland Village is Main Street West.
Okay.
So that's Tribute's development.
Okay, I just didn't know if everybody
knew. And also on the south side of Main Street West. And so that will be the primary area of residential activity this year. On the east side, they have some indications of MTO approvals now to start on the highway improvements that they need to make, including the new intersection that they need to construct for their subdivision. And they will be starting with some commercial site plan applications before any residential components to that development. So their target is to hopefully have approvals in place by the end of this year so that some building construction can happen in 2020. So they will be getting into site servicing this year. They have obviously started some of the site works, earthworks grading and that kind of thing. And the next stage is to do the highway improvements, hopefully this year, as well as some of the infrastructure installations. And then there are a few other developments that have been approved on paper in between and really help to create some of that balance in the town. Not only between residential, commercial, and industrial, but also in the mix of residential. So we do have two condominium townhouse developments that are nearing approvals, and one of them has been draft approved. No timelines yet on when those will be built, but they are sort of starting their more detailed design work. And we also have a new commercial development that's finalizing approvals with MTO in the Summerhill development. So there will be a second Tim Hortons location located there as a commercial block at the entry at Colonel Phillips Drive off Highway 10, and two other buildings as part of that site plan as well that would involve, in the range of 8 to 10 sort of medium-sized units for things that are sort of neighborhood-oriented for the Summerhill development, but also help to capture some of that traffic on Highway 10.
Thank you, Steve. Andrew, I stand here before you on record as saying, I can absolutely assure you that you have no competition from a Sears, an Eaton's, a Woolworths, or a Kmart. Any other questions from the audience this morning? Dan Sample? Yeah.
Just to come back up to downtown core again, and obviously we're looking at, it'd be great if all the storefronts and everything were filled in, but rumor has it lack of parking. How do we address that when it comes into trying to get, we know we've been trying, local is okay because we can walk there, it's not a problem, but you go to Orangeville, Alliston, they're driving, people are driving there to see what shops, see what's going on. We know our downtown core is lacking in our parking. How are we going to handle that if it starts to come up? Is there any plans to look at that?
Anybody?
I'll start off, and if Denise wants to fill in, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that the parking's an issue, and Shelburne's certainly not alone when it comes to that struggle. I mean, in any small town of our size, it deals with that sort of pressure. I mean, we do have a public lot off of Wellington Street on the south side, in behind Main Street. One of the strategies that we launched about a year and a half ago as a pilot project was to provide permit parking for store owners in some of those lots behind the stores. And the idea was that if we could divert the employee and owner parking to the back of the stores and leave the street level parking for patrons and visitors, that should have some benefit. I think we're expecting a report back from our bylaw officer in the next month or so to kind of deliver his findings on how that process has worked and whether that's something we're going to move forward with or rethink. You know, the other thing that's always in play when there is development downtown, there are fairly stringent requirements for those developments to provide adequate parking, and when they can't, they provide cash in lieu of parking. The concept there is that allows town to sort of build up some reserve accounts so that, you know, additional parking space could be acquired when needed. We've done a little bit of that in the past. The public lot at Town Hall was expanded a couple of years ago when an adjacent, you know, property was purchased and raised to provide parking. But, you know, it's one of those issues that, you know, as I said, we all struggle with, and I think, you know, we all sort of have to work together on. And to be frank, you know, the parking lot on Wellington Street, although some people may think it's you know, an awfully long way to walk, in all reality, it's less than a block from our downtown core, and anybody who you know, is working or shopping downtown Toronto, you know, walking 4 or 5 blocks really is not out of the realm of you know, what's reasonable. So there also has to be a bit of a change in mindset, and I'm as guilty as anybody else. I think when you live in a small town, you get in your car and you drive right to the doorstep and get out and walk in. You know, I think that's just, you know, part of the changing culture that we have to get used to and encourage more walking. So yeah, I mean, there's a multitude of issues at play, and you know, we're doing the best we can to address them.
Any other questions this morning? I appreciate that we're running considerably past time.
From your high school days, or?
Sorry?
When you said open slate, was that from the high school days?
My open slate?
Yeah, and you said it was an open slate.
I'm not sure I understand the question, nor do I think that I want to provide any answer to it. I'm not sure, but 2 more at the back.
I just wanted to say some of the questions are about parking and storefront stuff. Those are the 12 staff concerns. So if you go up to it, like one poster can be parking. There's ideas and suggestions and solutions that will come up over the course of the year. And May 24th is that public open house. That's where you can come and offer suggestions. It's based off of all that. That's where we come up with solutions. So that's how you can get involved. So I just wanted to do that.
Excellent, thank you. Steve?
I'd like to just add, on behalf of EDC and everyone here, I'd like to thank the MC and moderator for a job well done this morning.
Yeah. Any final remarks or closing comments from anybody on stage this morning?
Thanks for coming out.
Okay.
It's always great to see such a big turnout at this event. I think it's kind of one of the marquee events in town, and always much appreciated to have the support of not only the Shelburne community, but our surrounding neighbors as well.
And this is unstatistically unofficial. So if we did this breakfast twice a year, maybe not starting at 6, would people be interested in a biannual breakfast event on behalf of the town of Shelburne for the modest ticket price of $20.30 at the door? Would you let us know? Put your hand up. Just unofficial. Would you do it twice, or is once enough? Twice? Okay, so once. Once? Only once? Okay, once. Okay, thank you.
That's it, well, thank you, panelists, and I'm just a taxpayer resident. Thanks for what you folks do. I appreciate it.